Assalamualaikum and good morning everyone. So today is going to be our second asynchronous class, which is we continue about our previous topic, which regarding the innate and learning behavior. So let's present my slide for us. Hold on here. All right. Okay. So hopefully all of you can see my slide. Sure. This is our topic for this week, which is regarding dichotomy of innate and learning behavior. So on previous class, we already learned in details about the behavior, and now we are going to continue about the learning behavior. Okay, before we start to study about the details of learning behavior, let me refresh back to our previous topic, to our previous class. Okay, what is the two types of animal behavior characteristics? If you still remember, what is the two types of animal behavior characteristic? And what is the characteristic of the innate behavior? And give me the examples and the types of innate behavior. Okay, what is the types of innate behavior? How many types of innate behavior do we have? So let me refresh one by one. So the two types of animal behavior we have. The first one we have physical characteristic. While the second one we have behavior characteristics. Okay, so the physical characteristic we have some sort of type of color of the body structure, and also the changes of the physical characteristics, such as we have hair, leg. We also have weak, and also it will change the physical characteristic because maybe due to the injury. All right, so while the second characteristic that we have in animal behavior is the behavior characteristic, which is for example in innate behavior we have the duck. The duck is know how to swim, so this is the behavior characteristic. Okay, in the innate behavior. Well, from the learning behavior, for example, we have and the bird, how the bird taught to fly, the dog roll over the command, something like that. So that is the second characteristic of the animal behavior, which is behavior characteristic. So how about the characteristic of innate behavior? Okay, and what is the examples? So the characteristic of innate behavior, we have three, if you still remember. The first one we have fix. The second one we have stereotype. And the third one we have triggered by releaser. Okay. So the example of fix. Okay, what is the example of fix? Such as still remember we have the chameleons. Okay. The behavior of chameleons, eating behavior. The chameleons prey strike behavior, right? So this is the fix. Right, and the second characteristic of innate behavior, we have stereotype. So the example like we have the sequence of courtship behavior in Malak drag. Okay, the sequence of the courtship behavior. So this example of stereotype. Okay, and the third one we have the triggered by releases. The example of this is like red belly egg. Okay, in the stickerfish. Okay, so the third one is the type of innate behavior. So we have two type here. We have reflex. Okay, we have the first one is the automatic. Okay, automatic, which also divide by two, reflex. Okay, and also we have fight flight or fight. Okay, okay, this is automatic. Okay, type the first type of innate behavior. While the second type of innate behavior we have intuitive. Okay, so intuitive, like we have the courtship. This is a lot of behavior examples. We have courtship, we have territorial behavior, we have aggressive behavior, we have the circadian rhythm, the migration, hibernations. So all of those examples are from the type of intuitive innate behavior. Okay, so that is the general subtopic that we already learned in previous lecture. So now we are focused on learning behavior. Okay, so the learned behavior is the animals, uh, the behavior that the animals are not born with. Okay, and the behavior that the animals are acquired or modified by experience. So this is what we call as the learned behavior, and also the learned behavior are learned from observation and experience. Okay, so the animals get the behaviors are from learned or are from observation and experience. Okay, and the learned behavior are often learned from the parents. Like just now we are talking about the bird taught how to fly. So that is you know, the learned behavior. Okay, so this is the characteristic of learning behavior. So just now in the innate behavior we have three characteristics, which we have fixed, we have stereotype, and also we have triggered by releaser. However, for this learning behavior, we have four characteristics. The first one is the repeatable change. Okay, in behavior with experience. Okay, the repeatable change in behavior with experience. Okay, and the second characteristic, the change is gradual. Okay, like beransur-ansur, they don't do the behavior perfectly at the first time because that is the learning process. Okay, the behavior that they do is the learning process. So the characteristic of the learning behavior is the change is gradual, which is gradually. They don't have the perfect they don't do the perfect behavior at the first times. Okay, like how the animal fish for food. Okay, the first time they fish for food, they don't get the food. Okay, but they will try to repeat the behavior, and also like for example sing a specific song. Okay, so this is the example of the second characteristic of learning. And the third characteristic of learning is change wins without more experience, which mean the animals eliminate or decrease the behavior that they do not that the animals do not need the certain behavior. Okay, later on we will see the examples of this characteristic. And the fourth characteristic of learning is change usually benefits to the animals. Either they can get the rewards, okay, or they can reduce the penalty. Later on you'll see the example of this characteristic. So basically, the characteristic of learning behavior we have four. Is you need to remember repeatable change in behavior with experience. Change is gradual. Change when without more experience. Change usually benefit to the animals. So all of these are the characteristic of learning behavior. So we move to the type of learned behavior. Okay. Just now in the innate behavior, the type of learning behavior we have the type of innate behavior we have two, which is automatic and instinctive. While for the learned behavior, we have five. Okay. So the first one we have non-associative learning. Okay, so we will have habituation behavior, or we have the sensitizations. And the second type of behavior we have associative. Okay, so this is opposite each other. Okay, associative learning. So in here we have classical conditioning and also we have operant conditioning. And the third one we have latent learning. Okay, and the fourth one we have imprinting, and the last one we have insight. So this is very complex learning behavior. So the non-associative, we have habituation, sensitizations, while for the latent learning, so this is the behavior that does not demonstrate itself unless the need arises. Okay, later on we'll see the details examples, or rather until an incentive is present. So this is the latent learning. Okay, and while for the insight learning, which is the reasonable, the very complex behavior, okay, it happens all of a sudden. Okay, so basically you need to know the types of learned behavior. We have five. We have the non-associative, we have associative, we have latent, we have imprinting, and we have insight. So Nelly. So this is the type of learned behavior. So we go one by one. The type of learned behavior, which is the first one, is the non-associative learning. So it is divided into two. Okay, we have habituation and also sensitizations. So the non-associative learning is the organism that change their response to a stimuli without associate. Okay, so this is what we call as a non-associative learning. So the organism change. Okay, so change is the characteristic of the learned behavior. So the organism change their response to a stimuli without association with a positive or negative reinforcement. So this is the meaning of non-associative learning. So they have two types. They have habituation and also sensitization. So we go to the first type of non-associative learning, which is habituation. So what does it mean by the habituations? So the habituation is the decrease in response to a stimulus after repeat exposure. Alright, as you remember, the non-associative learning is the response to a stimuli without associate with positive or negative reinforcement. And here in habituation, there is a decrease in response to a stimulus after repeat the exposure. And the habituation also less sensitive to stimuli. Okay, they are less sensitive to the stimuli, and they will eliminate the responses that have no value on an animal survival or welfare. If you still remember, so this is going to be the fourth characteristic of the learned behavior, which is the fourth characteristic is the change usually benefits to the animals. Okay. So, and this behavior, they will help prevent waste of energy because they are eliminates the responses that have no value on the animal survivals or the animal welfare. So this will help to prevent waste of energy. All right. So, the simple learned behavior in which an animal gradually stop responding to a repeated stimulus. So this habituation is the simple learned behavior, okay, such as the animal just stop, give the response to this stimulus. So for example, in here we have the paradox and human, okay. So the paradox of humans, the paradox typically sound an alarm call, okay, when threatened by a predator. So this is normally the behavior, okay, which is they normally give a sound and alarm when they threatened by a predator, okay, and and because of they have been habituated to this situation, whereas the dogs are gradually become habituated to the sound of human. Okay, for example, in here the predator we take it as a human. So the peridot gradually become habituated to the sound of human footsteps as they repeatedly experience that the sounds of human footsteps is actually without nothing bad happening. Okay, normally when they heard the footstep of human, normally they will give an alarm call and okay to their colleague, okay, to their population because of they think that the footstep of the human is a threatened. Okay, this is threatened by the predator. But however, they will habituated. So this is the habituation. Okay, they habituated to the footstep of human because the sound of the footstep of human normally give nothing bad happening. So they will decrease they will eliminate the production of sound alarm if they heard the footstep of the humans. So this is what they decrease in response to a stimulus after repeat exposure. Okay, so that is the non-associative learning. Okay, they are decreasing a response to a stimulus after repeat exposure. Okay, so this is habituation. First example. The second one, the young horses are often afraid of cars, but gradually, oh sorry, but gradually they will become habituated to the city and ignore the normal sights and sounds. Okay, so the normal behavior of the young horses, they will afraid of cars, but after they experience with the repetitive situations, so they become habituated to the city, okay, with its cars and ignore the normal sight and sounds. Okay, so they are eliminate the behavior of afraid of the car or run over from the car because the car and the city if nothing bad happen to themselves. Okay, so just now is the habituations, which is the decrease in response to a stimulus after repeat exposure, while the second type of the non-associative learning is the sensitizations. Okay, so the sensitization is the increase. Okay, just now the habituation is the decrease. So the sensitization is the increase that occurs in an organism responsiveness to the stimuli. Okay, so the habituation is the decrease in response to a stimulus after repeat exposure, while the sensitization is the increase that occur in an organism responsiveness to stimuli and following an especially intense or irritating stimulus. Okay, and these sensitization are opposite of habituations. So in the sensitizations, an animal learns to react more often or more often or more strongly to repeated stimulus. They won't eliminate like in the habituations, but they are react more often and more strongly. That's why this sensitization is opposite to the habituation, and there is more sensitive to stimuli. Okay, the habituation is less sensitive to the stimuli, while the sensitization is the more sensitive to the stimuli. Okay, the less sensitive to stimuli is the habituation. Sorry. So it depends on the intensity and duration of the original stimulus. So the period of increased responsiveness can last from seconds to several days. Okay, so this is the sensitizations, the second type of non-associative learning. Okay, so for example, in here, we have seasonal. Okay, so the seasonal that receive a strong electric shock. Okay, so this is the situation. So will afterward withdraw its gill more strongly than usual in response to a simple touch. Okay, because of they are receive a strong electric shock, so they will react more strongly even though they are responding simple touch. Okay, so this is sensitization. They are increase in response. So that because of the situation of the exposure to the painfully loud sound cause an animal to respond strongly. So the animal may act agitated and try to escape from the source of the sounds. So if the sounds are followed by lesser sounds, which is the simple touch, for example here, that are not painful, so the animal may respond to them just as strongly. Okay, if this occur, it means that the animal has become sensitized to the sounds. So this is when the animals are increase the response to the stimulus. All right. So we move to the second type of learned behavior, which is associative. Just now, the non-associative, we have habituation and sensitization. Well, for the associative learning, what do we have? So we learn about the associative learning first. So the associative learning is the organism change their response to their stimuli with the association of positive or negative reinforcement. Okay, these associative are opposite to the non-associative learning. So they have two types. They have classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Okay, so this is the two type of associative learning. So we go to the first one, which is the classical conditioning. So a pioneer of the study is Ivan Pilov. Okay, so the Ivan Pilov, they do the experiment on the classical conditioning. So the animal reflex are trained uh, to respond to a new stimulus. For example, dog and bell. Okay. For example, in here, dog and bell. Okay. So these experiments are by the Ivan Pilov just now. So this Pilov, this researcher, okay, they begin to observe the salivation in dog. So the behavior observation that they need, they want to observe the salivation in dogs. Okay. So the first step he'll do, he will enter the room, okay, where the dogs are inside the room. So he will enter the room and place meat powder or food morsel on tongue and wait for salivations to occur. And he began to see that the dogs were salivating as soon as he entered the room, which was before any food was even inside. Okay. So this is he create a stimulus. Okay, he creating a stimulus, which is the stimulus in here is the meat powder or food muzzle. So he creating a stimulus to the dog. Okay, so the this is where the organism change the response to a stimulus with association of the positive reinforcement. Okay, the positive reinforcement is they will give the meat powder. So the dog begin to uh, salivating as soon as he entered the room, which was before any food was even inside. So the dog become conditioned. So the situation is that the dog becomes conditioned by Pavlov to have expectation. When he entered the room, the dog expected food. Therefore, they begin salivating in expectation. Okay, so this is the first steps of the experiment. Okay. Then the neutral stimulus. The neutral stimulus is something that normally would not produce any salivations. Okay. So in here, Pavlov choose a ring bell since the ringing bell would not normally produce any salivations in the dog. Okay. Okay. So this is what we call as the neutral stimulus. Okay. That something normally would not produce any certain behavior. Okay. So in here, the Pavlov choose a ring bell. So Pavlov began ringing a bell before placing the meat powder or any item foods on the dog's tongue. So he changed the experiment with ringing a bell before place a meat powder or the food on the dog tongue. So each and every time that the bell was rang, the meat powder or food was given to the dog. So the bell rang, the dog will get the powder, the meat powder. The bell rang, the dog will get the meat powder. So this is repetitive experiments. And Pavlov repeat these experiments many, many times. And eventually, the bell alone was enough to make the dog salivate. Okay. So this proof that a neutral stimulus, okay, the neutral stimulus in this experiment is a ring bell, okay, that generate no response. Actually, the first one from the dog before was now causing a response, which is salivations. So it means that the dog had learned to associate the sound of the bell with food because of the experiment they repeat many times. So the dog had been associate that the sound of bell will actually eventually come with the food. Okay. So this is how the Pavlov trained the dog. So this is before conditioning. Okay, before the conditioning. Okay, the food. So the food is the unconditioned stimulus. Okay, so the response of the dog will salivations. Okay, so this is unconditioned response, and this is before conditioning too. So the Pavlov will ring a bell. Okay, so bell is a neutral stimulus. Okay, that normally they won't give any salivations. Okay, then there no condition response. But during the condition, during the experiments, okay, the bell will often followed by the food. Okay, and the dog will salivate. So the dogs will think that after bell, they will get the food. After the bell ringing, they will get the food. So, and after the conditioning, even the bells alone, it will cause salivate, it will cause salivations to the dog. Okay, because the dog has been conditioned to the neutral stimulus. Okay, so the unconditioned stimulus in here is a food. Okay, food is the unconditioned stimulus. The conditioned stimulus is the formal neutral stimulus that comes to elicit a given response after pairing with an unconditioned stimulus. Okay, so for example, in this experiment is a bell. So the unconditioned response is automatic response to an unconditioned stimulus, which is salivate. So the conditioned response is a learned response to a conditioned stimulus, and also the salivations of the dog. Okay. So what does these experiments prove? Okay. So Pavlov experiments prove that all the animals could be trained, okay, or could be conditioned to expect any consequence on the result of previous experiments. Like in the previous experiment done by Pavlov, at the end of the study, they want to see the salivation in the dog, right? So at the end of the study, the dog are conditioned to the bell rung, okay, because of the previous experiment. After the bell are ringing, they will get the food. After the bell are ringing, they will get the food. So at the end of the day, only the bell ringing alone, the dog will have the salivations in the dog. Okay. So this is to prove that the animal also could be trained or conditioned to expect a consequence on the result of previous experience. So the second type of the associative learning is the operant conditioning, which is done by the B.F. Skinner. Okay, so he did his work between 1940s to 1950s. So the operant conditioning takes place when an animal learns to behave in a certain way through repeated practice in order to receive. Just now not receive. So in here, in order to receive a reward or avoid the punishment. Okay. And this operant conditioning not rely on existing stimulus response pair. For example, trial and error. And also the second example is the Skinner box. Later on we'll go one by one what is trial and error and Skinner box. Okay. So the trial and error is this type of learning behavior, okay, in the operant conditionings, which an animal receive a reward for making a particular response. For example, learning to ride a bike. Okay, so what reward that the animals or the humans or any organism get? They can no they can ride a bike. Okay, so this is trial and error, or a birds using different materials to build a nest until it is just right. So this is trial and error. Okay, either at the end of the experiment they will get a reward. Okay, if like in the birds, if they are trying many times, at the end of the day they will get the right nest, okay, to be built. Or in here they have learning how to ride a bike. So at the end of the day they know how to ride a bike perfectly. So the second type of the operant conditioning is the Skinner box. Okay, so in these experiments a rat was placed inside a Skinner box, and if the rat press down a lever inside the box, then the box will release a food pellet. Okay, soon the rat pressed the lever far more times often, and he would just by chance, okay, but in each instant of the lever pressing, the operand is reinforced by reward with food. Okay, then the rat starting to learn that okay, if they are pressing the lever, more often, then they will get more food. Okay, so the rat learns that pressing the lever is associated with food, so he will increasingly press the lever. So this is the example in the Skinner box. Okay, so this is how the experiment looks like. So this is the food dispenser. So this is the lever. So when the rats are press the lever, so then they will get a fruit. Okay, and in the Skinner box also they have a electrified grid in here. So not all the Skinner's experiments involve pleasant treats. Okay, the bottom of the box consisted of a metal grid that would deliver an electric shock to the rat as punishment. So when the rat got an electric shock each time it performed a certain behavior, so it quickly learns to stop performing that certain behavior. Okay, so this example shows that both positive and negative reinforcement can be used to shape an organism's behavior in the operant conditioning. Okay, either at the end of the certain behavior they will get a positive, okay, or they will get a negative. Okay, both shows that the animal can shape both shows that we can shape the animal's behavior. Okay, so operant conditioning is the basics of most animal training. Okay, either after they doing good behavior they will get a reward. If they don't behave, they will get the punishment. So there is the most basic animal training. For instance, okay, you might give your dog a biscuits, or you might uh, you might saying that okay, you are a good dog. Okay, every time it sits, roll over, or refrains from barking. Okay, so on the other hand, for example, of the of the negative one is the cows in a field surrounded by electrified fence, and the cow will quickly learn to avoid brushing up against the fence because they will get the punishment. Okay, so this is the basis of the animal training. Okay, the operant conditioning. And we go to the third types of learned behavior, which is the latent learning. So when an organism learns something in its life, okay, but the knowledge is not immediately expressed. Okay, so this is what we call as the latent learning. So the knowledge remains dormant until certain circumstances allow or require it to be expressed. Okay, and this is the learning without rewards. Okay, it's a different compared to the other types. Okay, and no association with a positive or negative stimulus. They don't have any reward, they don't have any punishment. Okay, for example of the latent learning, okay, so place a rat in a maze with no food. Okay, so the rat will simply run around the maze and familiarizing itself with the surroundings. So but if you then return the rat to the same maze in the next day and add the food, so the rat will find the food more quickly because they are already familiarized with this surrounding without they are knowing that at the end of the maze they will there are food. Okay, so they don't have any reward. Okay, so in this experiment, the rats were divided into three groups. The first one is the group 1, group 2, and group 3. The group 1, the rats got food at the end of the maze from day 1 of experiments. And the group 2, the rats were placed in the maze on 6 consecutive days before receiving food at the end of the maze. And the third groups, the rats were placed in the maze for 3 consecutive days before receiving food at the end of the maze. So this is the three groupings and in the experiments. And as you can see from the the graph, not surprisingly, the rats given a food reward from day 1 appeared to learn faster, had a more rapid drop in their numbers, okay, and had a more rapid drop of error in their while running in the maze. Okay, then the rats that not given any initial rewards. Okay, so this is the group 1. So the average error are rapidly down. Okay, from day to day of experiments, while the group 2 and the group 3, so the group 2 is the blue line color, the group 3 is the dot red line color. So the group 2 not rewarded at the first 6 days, but rewarded after the food, rewarded with the food after day 6. And the group 3 not rewarded the first 3 days, but rewarded with food after 3 days. So in both group, in the group 2 and group 3, the day after the food had been provided, okay, as you can see from here, the rate shows sharp drops in numbers of errors, almost catching up with the group 1 rats. So this pattern suggested that the group 2 and group 3 rat had in fact been learning efficiently, building a mental map in their previous days. Okay, they are familiar first with the maze. Okay, without have any reward. So the fourth types of the learning behavior is imprinting. So imprinting is a form of learning in which an animal at a critical time form a social attachment to another object. And the quick early learning of behavior that becomes a permanent response to a particular stimulus. So the imprinting is a quick learning behavior, okay? And also a significant innate component during a limited critical period, and also involve a set of innate behavior, innate component, and the imprinting is irreversible and unchangeable. Okay, and these work are done by Conrad Lorenz. Okay, so this is Conrad Lorenz. So this is what we call as a imprinting. Okay, what is that? So the imprinting experiment. So in the experiment, the Conrad Lorenz will divide the goose clutch of eggs into two groups. Okay, half of the clutch are stayed with the goose mom. Okay, so this is the normal condition. So the half of the goose eggs, okay, were incubated by the researcher, by the Conrad, and spend first few hours of life with researcher instead of the mom. So the baby, okay, the baby of the goose will spend first few hours of life with the researcher instead of the mom. And the results comes out from the point on the researcher goosling, okay, the goosling from the goosling, the baby of the goose, followed the researcher instead of the mother goose or any other geese. Okay, so the baby, the goosling will follow the researcher. Okay, because of the researcher spend the first hours with the Gosling spent the first hour with the researcher. So as adult, the birds continue to show preference for humans and sometimes initiated courtship behavior with humans. So this is what we call imprinting. Okay. So they didn't know who is the mom. Okay. Either the researcher or their own mom. They don't know. Okay. So this is what we call as a imprinting. Okay. We see the video. So this is the imprinting.
For the first 2 years of their life, these chicks will think of him as mother. They'll trust and follow him above all others. It's a process known as imprinting, and it's something.
Okay, so that is the examples of imprinting. Okay, imprinting experiments. So we move to the last types of learning behavior, which is insight learning. So insight learning is type of learning or problem solving that happen all of a sudden. Okay, so this insight learning, a prior experience is crucial to learning. So there is very complex learning, alright? So the insight learning identified by Wolfgang Kohler. And the insight is the most complex type of learning. So insight is learning in which an animal uses previous experience to respond to a new situations. And much of human learning is based on insight. Okay, this is why in animals there is the complex type of learning, because they need to think first. Okay, they need to use the previous experience in response to a new situation. So for example of insight learning, so the caller placed a banana outside the cage of a hungry chimpanzee. So this chimpanzee named Sultan. So and gave the animals, the Sultan, two sticks, and each is too short for the Sultan to pulling in the food. Okay, but however, if the Sultan adjoin the two short stick, it will make a single stick of sufficient length to pull in the banana. And but the Sultan tried unsuccessfully to use each stick. Okay, because there is a chimpanzee, so the chimpanzee had been given two short stick to take in the to put in the banana. So the first try, so the Sultan was unsuccessful, and later after apparently having given up, so the Sultan accidentally joined the stick. Okay, joined the stick and observe the result. Okay, so the Sultan immediately ran with the longest tool to retrieve the banana. So this is what we call as the insight learning. Okay, they are learns the experience first. Okay, to for the create a new situation. So this is the example. Okay, they are using stick. Okay, two stick, two combined stick. So you see the video to give you more experience about the insight learning.
Good grammar and spelling are important, but if you want to write essays that inspire, messages that forge brighter.
Okay, so
Monster Math presents Addition Below 10. Okay, class, let's begin.
okay. So this is the insight learning experiments. Okay.
At the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Leipzig, Germany, psychologist Joseph Cole places a peanut inside a clear tube. How can the chimpanzee get the snack? She's never seen this puzzle before. For 10 minutes, there's no solution inside. And all of a sudden, boom, they solve it. They have to understand that they can use the water as a tool. This is interesting because the water itself, it doesn't have any shape. Using water as a tool seems like something we would do on a good day.
Okay. So there is another examples of insight learning. Okay. So we already end to our topic for today. So this is just just the quiz for you to do. Okay, so you need to write is actually what is a trait. What do you think by the trait? Okay, so you can write down your opinions or your on the paper. Okay, what do you think about a trait? Okay, and you can give example as well. And this is actually you need to come up with something like this. So a trait is characteristic of some organisms. It can be passed down or it can be learned, and also this trait also can allow the organism to survive and reproduce. Okay, so all of this is actually the important point of what is the trait is. So you also need to list examples for each. Okay, just just think about it. So what is the reflex? What is the example of the reflex? Okay, maybe you just pull off your hand after you touch a hot pot, or what is actually the examples of the pheromones. Okay, the aggressions. Okay, the aggressions, for examples, the lion want to protect their territory, the trial and error. Okay, the trial and error, like how the animals trying to take a food or time to fish for food. Okay, circadian rhythm, like our 24 hours biological clock. Okay, the inside itself just now is the chimpanzee experiments. Okay, the migrations like the birds or the butterfly, the hibernation, the estivations, the territorial. Okay, so you just need to remember and refresh back what is the examples of all these behavior, right? So this is also the animals behavior. So this is just to refresh back our topic for this week. Okay, you can discuss these following pictures and trying to label each picture on your paper. Okay, this is self quiz lah. Okay, and maybe you can explain more. Okay, maybe of this one. Okay, you see the elephant. Okay, the elephant here. So the elephant they maybe have both instinct and learned behavior. So the instinct one is they are travel to water when the rainy season hit the savannah. Okay, so that is what we call as the instinct behavior. But also they learned how to drink and smell out of the direction of the water. So that is the learned behavior. So each of the behavior itself may be contain of both behavior, maybe content of learned behavior or instinct behavior. Okay, like this one. Okay, so this is the raccoon. The raccoon is this behavior is maybe totally the learned behavior because of they are trying to find food where human dispose it. Okay, due to the loss of habitat or due to the loss of natural resources. So this is solely of the learned behavior. Okay, the raccoon. But like this one, okay, this is maybe consists of learned and instinct behavior. So this is the bear. Okay, the bear consists of two. Okay, or consists of both learned and instinct behavior, where the instinct is trying to hibernate. So hibernate is the instinct. Okay, for each winter seasons, and the learned one is the cubs learns about the dance from mothers and we return to the dance they have been before. So this is maybe each behavior have both types of behavior like learned and instinct. Like this one bear, this is totally learned behavior because this is not really the common behavior of the bear. Okay, so this the bear learns to do tricks with the human. So this is totally a learned behavior. Okay, that's all from me. So today we are already finish up the titles of the topics of the learned and innate behavior. Okay, thank you guys. Assalamualaikum. Bye. Wait, wait, wait.